Hey, if you're pregnant over 40, I have just the community for you. It's a private community away from Facebook where women just like you come together to meet and support one another during pregnancy. To sign up for the waitlist, go to over40fabulousandpregnant.com/waitlist and be the first to know when the membership is open. I can't wait to see you inside. Welcome to Over 40 Fabulous and Pregnant. This is episode 17, and I'm your host, Jamie Massey. I want to help you have a fabulous pregnancy by celebrating and supporting your journey by sharing other women's pregnancy stories over 40. While we do discuss medical treatments and medicine, you know we aren't doctors. These are women's experiences that came before you, not medical advice. Today on the show, we have Jennifer from Nashville, Tennessee. This is Jennifer's journey to motherhood, and it started in her 30s when she decided she wanted to become a mother. She hadn't been on birth control over the years, so she wanted help from a fertility doctor. Can you believe this doctor told her she had a snowball's chance in hell of getting pregnant? While her pregnancy was amazing, her birth and recovery was not. And I want to make sure I tell all of the stories. Whether they're easy or challenging, I want to share them all. So grab a box of Kleenex, because I needed it. It's an amazing story that she would do over 1,000 times to have her daughter. Shout out goes to KMD828 on Instagram. She responded to last week's episode, and like Heather, she was also pregnant in her 20s, 30s, and now 40s, she says. Well wishes goes out to Ashley Gruno. Ashley, I hope I'm saying that correctly. She's pregnant with number 5 and will be 40 when she gives birth. She said she feels amazing so far at 15 weeks along. I also want to invite you to brunch on February 25th in downtown Grapevine. It is in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. There is a small group of us so far. So if you'd like details, you can DM me on Instagram or email me at jamie@over40fabulousandpregnant.com. I would love to see you there. I've heard how important community is to you, and I'm committed to launching it in about a month. I've been asking you questions on Instagram, and I really appreciate the feedback. This is going to be a private community for women over 40 who are trying to conceive, had a miscarriage, are currently pregnant, or gave birth. There's going to be a simple application to make sure it stays a safe place to share and make sure the right women are in the community. I am working so hard to connect you with other women in the community. This reminds me of when I was in junior league, and the power of women coming together is so motivating and inspiring. If this is you, don't forget to sign up for the wait list on over40fabulousandpregnant.com/waitlist. I'll be sure to leave a link below for you. One thing I did want to mention is I see some guests be a little shy about sharing their opinion and why. And I believe there is room on the show and the community for all opinions, because it can help us decide by hearing all of them. And it can make us more confident in either our decision or what decision we've already made. Like, for example, I've been dead set on not finding out the sex until birth because I think it would be fun. And that's what my mom did. And I think it would make birth that much more exciting. But then one of the guests mentioned that knowing the sex helped her bond with her baby. And I just thought, wow, that is such a compelling reason to find out the sex. And now I'm totally open to it. So to me, it's not about arguing what is right or being right or judgment. It's about hearing all of the options and then deciding what is best for you and your family. So I just want to share that as maybe one of our community guidelines that we'll start with, and really having room and space for everyone else. So with that, let's get into Jennifer's pregnancy journey at 43. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Let's go back a little bit before you were pregnant and your pregnancy and your journey to pregnancy.
I'd love to share. So I wasn't sure I wanted to be a mom. I had a challenging relationship with my own mother. And so I just was pretty career driven. I'm a nurse by background, and I was a nursing educator at the time. I first got the first twinge of maybe wanting to be a mom. I thought that would come, and then it didn't come. And then it came about 35. And so at 35, I started tracking my cycle and that sort of thing. And it didn't happen right away, and stop birth control. It didn't happen right away. And so I went to PhD school instead. And so I was getting close to around 38. I thought, you know what, if I'm going to do this, I probably need help, because I hadn't been on birth control that whole time. And so we went to a fertility specialist, and someone was recommended. We were living in Nashville, Tennessee at the time. And this physician had been very highly recommended. And we went and had all the genetic testing done, and we're starting the first steps. You know, they go in and count your eggs, and I didn't have a whole lot of eggs. And the physician told me, the fertility specialist told me I had a snowball's chance in hell of getting pregnant. And so I thought, well, then why am I going through all this? Like, why are we even bothering? And why are we going to spend all this money? And so I quit going, and I thought, you know, if it's not meant to be, and that was kind of my mantra, like if we're meant to have a family, we will. And so then I was talking with a physician colleague that I worked with. So at this point, I was the chief nursing officer for behavioral health at an academic medical center. And I was talking to a colleague who had just had a baby, and the parenting conversation and that, are you ever going to have kids discussion came up. And she wound up revealing to me that she had had a very similar experience at the same fertility clinic, and that she went to another fertility clinic and got pregnant. And so I was really felt hopeful by her story. And so she gave me a referral to her doctor. And so went to Nashville fertility specialist, and the physician was so amazing. She said on the very first appointment, we're going to get you pregnant. And I just cried, because I thought, like, this is really possible. And she sent me right away we did all this education. They had this educational program that you had to attend to make sure that you knew what you were getting into. And she sent me for an ultrasound to, examine my cervix and uterus and fallopian tubes and all of that, and found almost immediately that I had. So now at this point, I'm almost 40. It was right before my 40th birthday. And she found I had these cervical polyps. Now, I'm a nurse by background, but I chose intentionally not to become very knowledgeable about any of these processes, because I didn't want to be stressed out. And I knew from other women's experiences and what you hear in the media that the process of trying to get pregnant can be so stressful that it's the stress itself that prevents you from getting pregnant. So anyway, cervical polyps that she said were sperm killing, like they emitted some secretions that killed sperm in very non-technical, non-knowledgeable language. And so that we removed those and then started the injections to get me pregnant. Now, for IVF. So we did opt to go straight through to IVF. She didn't recommend that I do IUI because intrauterine, that I didn't have in vitro, but because of my age, and because she wanted to get me pregnant as soon as possible. And they also it was our choice, but recommended that we do the frozen cycle of IVF, because that way we could, because of our age, my husband was 46 at the time that we got embryos. And so because of his age and my age, she recommended that we do frozen so that we could do genetic testing. Because what I didn't know, which was just fascinating, is you hear about women having multiples with IVF. And I didn't know that that's because they have to implant multiple embryos. They hope to get as many embryos as possible. And then it's just kind of hit or miss if any of them implant. Because if there's, and what they told us was that it's often because there's something wrong with the embryo that it doesn't implant. And so with the frozen cycle, they could just implant one because they would do the genetic testing to make sure that they were like perfect specimens. And they do some kind of grading that I also chose not to understand very well. And I asked for no more information about to see which eggs were the embryos were the best quality. So they give you these hormones to increase your egg count, and then they put you into ovulation, a timed ovulation, and you're getting all these injections. And again, I knew nothing about anything. And my doctor would be like, "Aren't you a nurse?" And I'm like, "I am, but I don't want to know anything. I don't want to learn. I don't want to be stressed out about what the side effects," because I was worried about, you hear about the emotional roller coaster of it. And I didn't have that much. I was in a really high stress job, and that was really stressful. And I wasn't telling people that I was going through IVF because I didn't want them to think I couldn't do the work. And I didn't think it was very corporate feeling environment. And I didn't want to be judged for slacking. That was very stressful, but I didn't really have a lot of mood swings. So the first time they tried, I only had one egg develop, and it developed faster than they wanted. And so we did do one cycle of IUI. So we did that. I went home and, sitting there on the couch with my hips propped up, and I thought, I like to meditate. And I thought, I'm going to meditate about being pregnant. And so I did. And I just got this sense that there was a baby soul out there for me. And I knew it wasn't going to happen this time. So I didn't get pregnant, but then the next cycle, I had lots of eggs. I had 17 eggs.
Wow.
The nurse called me to tell me, she was like, "You're just not going to believe this. This is unheard of." And I was like, "You mean at 41? And she said, "Well, yeah, you said it." She said, "But you have eggs." And so they had 7 of them fertilized. And so we had 7 embryos, and then they froze them and did the genetic testing, and 3 of them were viable. So the other 4 had something, a genetic SNP missing or a chromosome missing that would result in either defects or them not implanting. So we had the 3, and we chose to, and we also knew the sex. We chose to know the sex. So we had 2 females and a male, and we chose to not choose the sex of the baby, but to choose the best quality embryo.
Yeah.
And so that was our daughter.
Yeah. I think I would do the same way. The sex is not important. Give me a healthy baby.
Yes, exactly. I know I secretly wanted a girl, and my husband secretly wanted a boy, but we just were going to be happy with whatever the best was. And so it turned out she was a girl. So at that time, that was, in the fall of, I guess that would have been 2016, 28. I don't remember, all the years fall together, but I was 41. And so at that time, my job, the intensity of my job was getting more, and my dad's health was failing. And then my grandmother, who I'd been trying to take care of remotely, my brother and I alternating, going back and forth to care for her in New Mexico. My grandmother passed. And my dad, who was also living in New Mexico, was needing more help. So my husband and I moved out to New Mexico, and I decided to pause for a couple of months on implantation. And my doctor agreed to do it working with a fertility specialist out in Albuquerque when I was ready. And so I took a position as a CEO of a psychiatric hospital in Albuquerque, which was my first non-nurse job and first CEO position. But it was just a great company, and the people were great, and I really loved it. And so after 9 months of kind of getting settled in that role, in January of 2019, started the progesterone injections to get pregnant, and then flew to Nashville. And the week after my dad died April 1st. And we'd already scheduled and planned to go and I had not told my dad at that point that I was trying to get pregnant, because I think he'd given up hope of having a grandchild from me.
Oh.
And so the day before he died, I told him. and which is just extremely emotionally charged because he was so happy. And yeah, he looked really sad. I think he knew. And so there was a lot of sadness and a lot of hope when I went for implantation. So I went and I stayed with some friends. My husband couldn't come with me, and so a dear friend of mine did. I'd also been getting acupuncture. I did acupuncture through the IVF process, which I really do think helped a lot, if nothing else, just for me to relax. And then I went to see my favorite acupuncturist right before implantation, and then my friend stayed with me. And my fertility specialist, I'd gained about 20 pounds, so I was overweight. I was about 200 pounds when we got the embryos, and I'd gained about 20 pounds with the hormones and stress probably. And she said, "Oh, you're right at the cusp of where I might not have done this if I'd known you'd gain this weight." But since you're here, which that was a little stressful, since you're here and we planned all of this, we're going to do it anyway. She said, "But I just need you to know that because your risks go up when you're obese." And so I stayed in Nashville with some friends, just relaxing for a week, and then went back to Albuquerque. You don't find out for a month. And so during the last week of that month, I went on a meditation retreat to Mexico with a friend of mine because I thought, I'm going to be really relaxed when I come back, whatever the news is. Mm-hmm. And then came back and found out I was pregnant. And I don't think I'd allowed myself to really want it until I got the news. I think I was just staying in this state of ambivalence of like, if it's going to be, it's going to be. And I'd never really allowed myself to really, really want it.
I think we really do that to protect ourselves.
Right.
And we're going to be hurt or happy either way.
Yeah. I think in hindsight, I was exactly that. Like I was afraid of being crushed by the news that I couldn't get pregnant. Mm-hmm. And so then I called my husband and I was just sobbing. And he was like, "What is wrong?" I was like, "We're pregnant." He was like, "Well, I thought you'd be happy." I was like, "I'm so happy." Mm-hmm. So
that's beautiful.
That's the story of leading up to pregnancy.
And you got a phone call. That's how you got the news.
Yes. So I was being monitored in Albuquerque, but my fertility specialist was in Nashville. So she called me. She's the one that called me. So I had to get the results in Albuquerque. I mean, go get tested in Albuquerque. They had to send them to her. And then she's the one that called me.
Oh, that's neat.
I just felt so loved and supported. And the fertility clinic that I went to was like every single person there. It was just a place that felt really hopeful to me. Mm-hmm. And so it was really important that I do that with them. And we had our beautiful daughter because of it.
And how was your pregnancy?
Oh gosh.
You said it was amazing.
It was amazing. I had the best pregnancy. Like, everyone was so worried, meaning the doctors, because I found an OB who specialized in elderly, that's what they called it, pregnancies. And then I had a prenatal specialist that I saw also. We had so many ultrasounds, but I really felt really good. I didn't have just very little morning sickness. The first time I had morning sickness, it was like everything bagel seasoning, like the garlic. I think it was my favorite. I used to make avocado toast with that. And I was like, oh no, this is not happening, which was kind of fun because it wasn't terrible sickness. It passed pretty quickly. And it was like, oh yeah, I'm pregnant. Mm-hmm. That's the one thing about being overweight is it's not as like, it takes a while for you to really start showing. And I think some people just thought I was fat. So it wasn't like immediately evident. And so I had a little bit of swelling towards the end of the pregnancy, but I just felt really good. I felt really energized. She was really active, really pretty early. All of the ultrasounds it was just so amazing getting to see her and see her little face and features. And they love to point out that, yes, it's a girl. And, it was incredible. It was such a gift to be able to see her so frequently. Mm-hmm. I do think I had some anxiety about like, is this really going to happen? Is this really real? Mm-hmm. And so meditated a lot during pregnancy to try to because I did have a lot of fear, that something would happen but I never, they when you get to the phase of pregnancy where they want you to count the kicks, I never really needed to count because she kicked so much. It seemed pointless because she was always moving. So yeah, it was. Wonderful.
That's a great feeling.
I loved feeling her in my belly. I kept my hands on my belly all the time.
What do you think helped you have a great pregnancy? I'm sure meditation definitely helped.
Meditation, attitude. Like I didn't want to believe or allow those negative perceptions around me to filter into my mind. And I did about midway through pregnancy, I started hypno babies, hypnobirthing classes, they're online classes. And there's this like daily kind of positive affirmations track that I did that I think helped a lot also. You know, my doctor, my OB was really wonderful in that I never felt judged about my weight, but I didn't know this until after birth, but she'd had a negative outcome in a woman over 40 who was overweight and was petrified of something happening to me or the baby. She had a negative outcome with a mother. And so I didn't know that, but I think it was driving some of her decisions. You know, she was so like, I think she was convinced I was going to have preeclampsia. Now my mom did. And so I was worried about that too, but my blood pressure stayed fine. And there was a large part of me that was like, I'm okay. My baby is okay. I'm okay. Like, this is going to be fine. I was in a pretty high stress job. And I remember the last week that I worked, which was right up into, I took about 4 days off before delivery. So right through 38 weeks. I'm usually pretty good at managing stressful, high stress, like emergency type situations. And things started, like people started just getting on my nerves. So my blood pressure did go up once and I went in to get checked in the emergency room. By the time I got there, I think they thought I was making it up. It wasn't, because it was not up and it was fine. And I didn't have any, you know, ketones in my urine or anything that they were cause for alarm. But at that point, my doctor was like, we've got to get you in. So I think would have scheduled me then if I'd allowed it. But I put my foot down. I'm like, I'm not having her until after Christmas. So I went in for induction, which in hindsight, and what I would say to women who are looking to get pregnant is to listen to themselves. I mean, you have to balance that medical advice and knowing what's going on with you and what pros and cons are with also just listening to your own body. And I wish that I had said, no, I'm not going to be induced before 40 weeks. Because I think that might have made some difference in some of the things that happened with my delivery.
And how else did you prepare for birth?
So we were living in Albuquerque where my dad was there, but I didn't really have any other family and only a few friends, not anyone to bring into the labor and delivery room with me. And my husband was really nervous. So and not sure about his role in being a coach through labor. And I wasn't sure about it either. So although he was wonderful, we found a doula.
Ooh.
Which I wish that I had started that process like as soon as I knew I was pregnant, looking for a doula. I didn't right away. And so a lot of the doulas were taken that were more experienced. And so the one that I found was just in the last part of her apprentice year. Now, during the pregnancy, she was wonderful. It wasn't the great fit during labor, but she was incredible during like preparing me. She's the one that told me about hypnobirthing because I wasn't against an epidural or any kind of pain medication, but I wanted to see what my body would do. Like I wanted to see if I could handle it. I just wanted to be open. And I think that was my approach to the whole, like to pregnancy, to the fertility experiences. I wanted to be really open and not limit myself one way or the other. And so a lot of meditation. I did the birthing classes at a hospital, which I found not to be helpful and more fear inducing than anything else. The hypnobirthing course was so much better and so inspiring and like very affirming of like women's choices and, your body and not allowing the medical system to dictate like your choices around your pregnancy. And so she helped me develop the birth plan that I wanted, which nothing went that way, but that's okay. And so I had worked for labor and delivery as a brand new nurse. And this is terrible, but I remember we used to say that women who had rigid birth plans meant that it was going to go the opposite. And so I tried to not have a rigid birth plan, but it still didn't go the way I
What was your birth plan?
That I wanted to be open to anesthesia or not, that I wanted to give it every chance to not do anesthesia, that I wanted to only go up on the Pitocin as needed and not like on a strict schedule, which is kind of what we did. And then I didn't really progress. And then I wanted to wait to have the cord cut, and I wanted to have her have a chance to nestle on my stomach and on my bare chest and possibly even latch before the cord was cut. And I wanted my husband to cut the cord. Those were the big things. I wanted to have quiet time after birth with her without them, rushing her away for a bath or those sorts of things, unless it was an emergency and needed which is what did wind up happening. Dim lighting, doula,
Oh, yes. And what was your goals for your doula? Was she more for birth prep in the birthing room?
Yeah, I really wanted someone to just be there for me when I needed a coach and to be able to see maybe what I needed. And in the beginning stages of labor, she did that. But when things got harder, and I think her and my husband also didn't connect. I think that's really important that they make a connection with the partner as well, because then he wasn't in the loop about everything that she was doing. And I think there was not really good communication between the two of them. And then she would just leave and take breaks, which I labored for 3 days. So that's a long time and people need to take breaks, but there wasn't really good communication with the two of them because of that. But that didn't answer your question. I also wanted someone to kind of cheer me on and tell me that I could do it, but who would listen to me. So some of the things that she did that were really great is that, she gave me massages and she had some essential oils and she helped remind me of some of my breathing techniques with the hypnobirthing. They had a bathtub and she helped me to get into the bathtub when it got really hard. They did the balloon cervical dilation, which I wouldn't recommend. It was so painful. It was terrible. It was more, I think that's what kind of tapped my reserves. I did wind up getting an epidural after about 60 hours in, something like that.
Wow.
Because I was just really tired mostly.
Yeah.
But, that was really nice. And she, lit candles around the tub and that sort of thing. So that, I think someone who's familiar with the birthing experience for you when you haven't done it before and knows what options are and what's possible. So you're not kind of going it alone. I think that was my goal for her. And she accomplished a lot of that. Like I said, I think that connection with the partner has to be there. And then when things kind of were not going the way they should, and it was taking so long, I think she should have called in someone else to relieve her, but she didn't want to do that. And then she didn't know what to do. I think experience there would have helped her a lot.
So what did happen? Why take us back to birthing and where did the emergency C-section happen?
Yeah. So it was the second night I had her on the third day. The second night about midnight, I wasn't progressing. I had gotten to 4 with the balloon dilation. And then after that, they increased the Pitocin to the maximum and then went several units over the maximum. And I was having really hard contractions, but they were 4 and 5 minutes apart and they weren't regular. And I was so tired. I went ahead and got the epidural and then I was able to sleep a little bit and they turned the Pitocin off for a little while and they were going to restart it in the morning, which they did. And I was able to, during that whole period, I was able to get up and walk. That was really important to me. And I told them I wanted a walking epidural. I wanted to be able to move as much as possible, which I still was. And then I started having about 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon after they'd restarted and I'd started having contractions again, but they still weren't close enough together or strong enough to do very much to my cervix. I started having chills and shaking, but I didn't have a fever. And so they thought it meant I was changing. And so that went on and they let me wrap up because I was cold. And then, I was doing all these different positions in bed, trying to get her to kind of move, put more pressure on the cervix or whatever needed to happen. And that went on for several hours. And I started just not having a very good feeling about things. They came in and checked my temp. It was 3 o'clock and they were going to recheck it at 5 and my eyes started burning and I thought I have a fever. And so I was on antibiotics. So they let me go that long. My water broke with the balloon dilation. So my water at this point had been broken for over 48 hours, but they weren't worried about it because I had been on antibiotics for group B strep. So usually, they'll take you back for a C-section after so long with your water being broken, but that wasn't a concern because I was already on antibiotics. And so when my eyes started burning, I called them in and my own doctor was on service, but she was going off at 5 o'clock. And so she came in and she was like, the nurse said, it's a little early, but I'll go ahead and take your temperature. It was 4:30 at this point. And I said, I have a fever. I know I have a fever. at this point, like her strip had been perfect, like the entire time. She was not tired. She just was perfect little bumps, like no decelerations at all. Mm-hmm. And then my fever spiked and it was 102 or something. And so my OB came in and said, we're going to take you back for surgery. I'm going off service. It's going to be this other doctor. You know, she's great, whatever. And at that point, she started having decelerations, like as they were prepping me for surgery. And then it turned into an emergency C-section. And this part's still hard because I didn't, nothing was going the way that I thought. And it was so scary. And my mom had her first child had died right after birth. So I had this fear, and I had done all of this, like meditating and therapy about because I had fear about that happening. So they took me back to surgery. It was so scary. I swear when she came out, I heard the doctor say she's not breathing. My husband said, I imagined that didn't really occur. I do think it was just my fear, but she was not doing well. She, her first APGAR was like 5. So they had to I got to kiss her on the head, and she just had this feeble little cry. And they took her to the NICU, and it was just incredibly frightening. And, I'm in this room for recovery, and the doula is trying to tell me you need to pump if you want to try to, so I'm trying to pump. I'm in pain. I don't have my daughter with me. It was just, and it's this intensely painful experience of knowing that this child that you've had with you for the last, almost 10 months, and you felt her every second, is suddenly somewhere else and struggling and in pain, and you can't help her or touch her or know that she's okay. And so I think that was the hardest thing.
Yeah.
So I didn't take, they told me that when it was time for me to go to, postpartum, that if she was stable enough, they would let me come by and see her. And so I didn't take pain medication because I didn't want to be knocked out. Mm-hmm. And so at this point, I'm in terrible pain, but I got to look at her, and she was on a CPAP respirator. They had, IVs everywhere, and she was really struggling to breathe. Mm-hmm. And so, she was in the NICU for 3 weeks. They did cultures right away. They were really surprised. She had E. coli bacterial meningitis. Wow. So the first round of antibiotics that they put her on, which means it was likely from a dirty check, which is distressing because it's avoidable.
Yeah.
But so I don't know. It could have been from getting in the bathtub. It's my water wasn't broken at that point, but maybe it was a little bit. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so, we're in the NICU, and there's, I was not feeling good. I was having a hard time breathing, and the nurses thought I was having panic attacks. Every time I'd try to fall asleep, I would feel like I was smothering and I couldn't breathe. I think everybody thought, I thought I was having panic attacks too. I wasn't. I had the flu. So the first nurse that took care of me sneezed on me. Oh, and I thought, oh my God. And she was coughing, and she was like, don't worry. I went to the doctor today, and it was not the flu. Well, the flu was going really bad through the hospital, and they were short staffed because of it. And so, because I remember the nurses talking about how short staffed they were in the operating room. Mm-hmm. And so she had the flu, and I got the flu. So here I got to go down and see my daughter the next day, and I got to do some skin to skin on my chest. So here I'm trying to get my milk to come in, and I'm depressed. I'm despairing. I wasn't depressed. I was despairing because I was so scared for her. And what they tell us is all the bad stuff. I mean, the NICU team was amazing. They had conferences with us, and they told us everything that was going to happen, but it was so frightening because they also have to tell you, we don't know if your daughter will be okay. We don't know if she'll have brain damage from this. We caught it early, but this is a very serious bacterial infection that's gone to her brain.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's the most frightening experience that you can imagine possible. And I felt terrible. And I think I couldn't separate it from that I was actually sick, and not just that I was having this terrible experience and just had surgery. So, the nurses were in postpartum, I think, did not know how to handle the type of experience I was having. Usually postpartum is like lovely and, new babies. And I was not having that experience. And this nurse came in I think you just have to stand up for yourself. This nurse came in to do the postpartum depression scale. Now, I'm a psychiatric nurse by background. I'm very familiar with this scale. And she was asking me the questions, and she was like, I think you're depressed. And I remember screaming at her, which is terrible. And I was like, I'm not effing depressed. My baby's in the NICU, and I have the flu and so at this point, like, nobody's coming in the room because it's like I have COVID, but it's before COVID. Nobody wants to get the flu. So she was like, okay. And she steps out. I think she put some notes in my chart. And so my husband and I, at this point, I'm notified that I cannot see her. I cannot go down and visit with her. I can't with you because I have. But my husband still could. So the doctor wanted me to stay 2 more days, but I was like, why am I in the hospital? I can't sleep. I'm miserable. People here are just like, don't know how to take care of me. So we left AMA, and I went home, which was a lot easier, I think, for my husband also so he wound up spending most of the time with her that first week. And then I was able to get some sleep and recover. I think my flu was actually pretty mild once I got into a little bit better environment. But it was so hard. I don't think I've ever felt that scared in my life. I did get to Zoom with her, which is the NICU nurses. Like, I called constantly, and they always gave me updates, and they were never like impatient. So I got to see my husband holding her, and that was really amazing. But
yeah, that sounds like 3 weeks of just hell.
Yeah, it was not fun. And then, and recovering from a C-section. And so then it was just driving in to see her first thing in the morning. And we'd try to get a couple hours of sleep at night and then spend the day at the hospital with her. But she was like, so within a week, we were able to take off the CPAP respirator, and she just had oxygen, and she was smiling. Like, I know they say that it's just gas or whatever, but she was smiling when I sang to her. So, yeah, she was just resilient from the get-go. And then we were able to wean her off the oxygen and just had to wait to finish the antibiotics because that was why it was 3 weeks. Otherwise, she probably would have been ready to go home a couple of days earlier.
Mm-hmm. So how was bringing her home?
Oh my gosh, it was amazing. It was like the best day of my life at that point because she was just wide-eyed and so like interested in her environment. I know they can't see a ton, but she was looking all around, and it felt like what it was supposed to feel like taking her home, and just so much relief. Mm-hmm. And she just did incredible after that. I had a lot of anxiety about her breathing so I didn't sleep a whole lot. My husband tried to take turns with me, and I was trying to pump. My milk didn't come in really well. So I never made more than half of what she needed. So we had to supplement. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I think they were so excited when the night nurse, the night nurse was wonderful with her. But she was I think when she started, they would do this test to see if she could tolerate a bottle, because she was tube fed and by NG tube. And she finally passed it in the middle of the night. And I had asked them to wait and let me try to breastfeed the first time, but they didn't. And she gave her a bottle, which I was so it was really, really hard for her to latch. She latched only a couple of times ever. But anyway, yeah, I was so nervous about her after birth so we actually got one of those monitors that go on the feet to alert you if they stop breathing. Mm-hmm. It did give me some peace of mind. But, I'd kept her in a little bassinet right next to me at first because I thought we don't want to start the in the bed thing. It was not something that we wanted to do, but she quickly came into the bed with us with a sleeper because I just needed to be able to put my hand on her and know she was okay. But she was, and she was an amazing baby.
Good.
I have one more thing I would love to share.
Please.
I really wanted to do, when I had visions in my mind in my 20s of what my birth would be like, it was going to be a home birth. I was going to do it, naturally, or, have a midwife. And when you're over 40, that's kind of unless you're in an area that, I don't know, it's not really given to you as an option. So the midwife, when I went to see a group of midwives, when I was trying to first went to fertility at 38, they were like, I'm sorry, we don't take high risk pregnancies, and you're high risk because of your age and weight. And so what I did do is I took a breastfeeding class at a birthing center. And I also, it's like this weird juxtaposition of like, if I'd had a choice, I would have done things a little bit differently. And maybe if I'd investigated more, maybe there are groups out there that still do that for women who are older. But I also felt excluded at the birthing center because it was like this incredible community of women that all seemed to know each other because they had all done their prenatal classes there, and they were all planning to deliver there. And while the breastfeeding class was really, really good, it was like being on the outside and kind of looking in. And so I think if I was doing it over again, from the beginning, I would explore what my other options were. I would also tell women at birthing centers to be more inclusive to people who are older and don't have the same options.
Yeah. Because
it was a great class, and I think the information was a lot more inclusive and broad than what was offered in the hospital, because I took those classes too.
Yeah. I find it so surprising how natural you are with your medical background.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of that is being a psychiatric nurse. So I think psychiatric nursing tends to be there's not necessarily a pill that fixes that fixes mental illness. And so I think a good psychiatric nurse looks to other sources for healing. Now, that doesn't mean that they all do, but many do. And I'm like a Reiki practitioner and have always been very interested in natural methods of healing, and have done a lot post-pregnancy for my own like gut healing and to get off medications. And so I think I live in a juxtaposition, in a cross between medical science and natural healing.
That's really neat.
Thank you.
Now tell us, you have 2 embryos left.
Yes, we do. We have a boy and a girl left. And, it was so like the birth experience was pretty traumatic. And my husband wanted to talk about them right away. And I was like, I'm not ready to talk about them yet. But he was like, well, do we need to decide what to do with them? And nope, we're just going to keep paying for them to be frozen in their little frozen wherever they are. And in Seattle, Washington, which is where they've been shipped to, and wait. And so I knew based on what my doctor had said that I needed to lose weight. So I gained 30 total pounds with the before pregnancy and during pregnancy with the injections. I wound up having to have progesterone injections longer through the pregnancy to stay pregnant. I didn't have really high progesterone levels. So I think that, and I do think that contributed to some weight gain. And then we moved back to Nashville when she was 1 year old, because this is where all of our connections are. And I currently teach nursing. I decided I needed to leave administration. So I'm teaching instead in order to be at home more. So all of that to say, I think in all that stress and move, and with my father passing, I gained 20 more pounds. And so, they're probably not going to do that. And so I've been on a healing journey naturally using functional medicine and food, whole foods to lose weight. And I've lost 50 pounds. And so
congratulations.
Thank you. I'm still losing. So I have about another 60 I'd like to lose, but I think that I'm at a place where I can go talk to a fertility specialist again. So unfortunately, my doctor retired, but our plan is to schedule an appointment for after the first of the year, and to decide whether or not at 46, this is the year. Either we'll have another baby or we won't.
Cool. I can't wait to find out.
Thank you. It's exciting to think about. And I'm just releasing all of the notions about what it means to be 46 and pregnant, because that's just a number anyway.
That's right. And you're ready, it seems like.
I'm ready. Mm-hmm. And I think she would enjoy being a big sister.
So what has been your biggest challenge being pregnant in your 40s?
Other people's perceptions, honestly. it was just an incredible experience. Like I would be pregnant and do that again now, who knows if it'll be the same, if I'll feel the same way, but it was an incredible pregnancy. And other people were like, oh, you're over 40 or, it's more dangerous and, the risks are greater. I didn't know that my OB had a negative outcome with a woman over 40 who was pregnant with a maternal negative outcome. She called me after when I was home to check on me, and she'd heard about my experience with the depression scale, and I was crying, and I told her I was very angry, and I was very despairing that she was in the hospital, and I felt like it was because I was honest with her, and I told her I felt like it was because I was induced too soon, and that didn't need to have happened, and I wish I had stood up for myself. And she said, Jennifer, I was so scared for you. She said, I actually don't have a lot of nights that I don't sleep because of patients, and you're a patient I lost sleep over, because she was so worried about my obesity and being over 40 and the risks and that something would happen. And I think that clouded her judgment. I heard Jody's story and her doctor supporting her in waiting. And I think you have to advocate for yourself if you're not having other complications. And I wasn't. Like, there was no indication that I needed to induce other than my age and my weight. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the biggest challenge.
Yeah. Anything you'd recommend that would help prepare someone for pregnancy and birth?
I think meditation is amazing. Mm-hmm. Just like having an open heart about what's going to happen. It's so easy to let all the fears about what's in the media and all the negative stories. That's the other thing. Like, don't listen to negative stories. People want to come at you with all their negative crap when you're pregnant. And
they do.
Horror stories. And you don't have to listen or let any of that in. That's one of the things Hypnobabies, their birthing course actually talks about that. Their prenatal class talks about that. And I needed to hear that, because it's so easy to let other people's bad story. And I had worked in labor and delivery, so I had lots of my own bad stories about things that didn't go well with. So just like, it doesn't have to be your story. You don't have to keep that in your psyche.
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, even though we had a hard experience, I wouldn't change my pregnancy experience at all. Mm-hmm.
I think I know this answer, but what advice would you give yourself when you were pregnant if you could go back?
Yeah, to stand up for myself about, to stand up to my doctor about induction and not be induced at 38 and a half weeks.
Yeah.
At least wait. My body wasn't ready. And even though I did do a lot of meditation and I did a lot to stay open, I still think I had a lot of fear around breastfeeding that got in the way a little bit at the end. And I don't know, I did not see a therapist during pregnancy, and I maybe would have seen a therapist during pregnancy, because I was just someone else to talk to about the little fears that were in my head and that I was trying to not have. Mm-hmm.
Those thoughts love to sneak in.
Yeah, they do. Even when you're working really hard, to not let them sneak in. And most of the time I was successful, but I still think there was some that was there.
And where can our listeners find you on the internet?
Well, I'm not around a lot of places. I'm on Instagram, and we don't post family pictures. We've chosen to keep our daughter off of social media. And then I'm also on Facebook and LinkedIn.
And what's your handle on Instagram?
Jennerd Love. It's a long story from when I was a PhD student, but JUNNERDLUV.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, for sharing your story. I know a lot of this can bring up a lot of negative emotions, but thank you so much for sharing.
Well, thank you. It was a wonderful experience for me to be able to do it. And I just hope that someone is able to take some inspiration away from it, because it's totally worth it. I would do it over 1,000 million times.
And that wraps up another great episode on Over 40 Fabulous and Pregnant podcasts. I worked so hard to keep it together during the recording with Jennifer, but while I edited it, I wasn't so good. But what a great pregnancy. Have you noticed how much advocating for yourself has been just a theme for so many of these stories? On next week's show, we have Johanna from Charlotte, North Carolina on to share her story. She was 40 when she was pregnant, and now she's a no BS pelvic floor and lactation coach. So until then, thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you next Monday. Bye.